Hey guys, it's me, Travis with PlayerProps.ai. I don't really have a name for this episode as of recording it, and this is not something we're going to be focusing on anything really sports betting. This is a video that's kind of going a little backstory on how I got to where I am right now. And I wanted to record it on this day specifically, July 20th, because there's a big shift in life that happened on this day many moons ago. So I want to kind of build the story of my background. Where did I start? How did I get there? How am I now operating and leading the #1 sports betting research app for bettors of all skill sets and skill levels? So that's what this episode is. And by the time I finish editing and recording it and throwing it up on YouTube, I don't know, maybe I'll have a title by then. But I want to kind of, I don't know, little story time with Travis, if you will. So, I kind of am pretty open when people ask questions in Discord and YouTube comments or whatever it may be. But I feel like there's still a very, very many of you that watch the daily stuff that don't actually know too much about me, besides the fact that I built something that's helping people crush it in sports betting. So let's do a little backstory. College, I went to college for acting specifically. So this is not to date myself, but we're going back almost, what is it now? 16 years since I graduated college. I'm old. Man. Anyway, so I went to college for acting, got a bachelor's degree for that. And then what I did is I got into, so I'm from Central Florida, and I mean, anybody who's watched enough shows or has had enough interactions inside of Discord, you guys know that, Orlando Magic fan and Miami Dolphins, even though I know that's not Central Florida, but you know what I mean. So I went to college, got a degree in acting, and then I started doing the like live show entertainment stuff. I did a little bit of this short stint at SeaWorld, short stint at I did like a lot of the Universal stuff, specifically not the things you see on a daily basis, but I did like the Halloween Horror Nights. Like I would scare the crap out of people. That was a fun job. But fun in terms of experience, not fun because it was like $7.25 an hour. Yeah, you don't do that you don't do that kind of job for the money. You do that kind of job for the fun of it. And then a vast majority of the time after college in live show entertainment was I was actually the show host for Nickelodeon. Now you're like, oh man, have I seen this guy on TV? Most likely not. Like I would say 99.99% of what I did for Nickelodeon was a live show entertainment, either in Orlando, Florida, at like the Nickelodeon Hotel or on the Norwegian cruise ship, because they actually had a Nickelodeon program on a Norwegian cruise line for about 10 years, and I did the shows on that for a bit as the host. And so just bear with me. This all culminates into PlayerProps.ai. Trust me. This is just kind of a storytelling. So I guess I'll start with so while I'm working at Nickelodeon in Orlando, Florida, one of my coworkers or castmates or whatever you want to call them, me and her were sitting in the break room on the couch, and she was reading a book that was titled How to Write an Ebook. So it's a physical book that was titled How to Write an Ebook. She was wanting to write an ebook. I think her goal was to write something focusing on like tips and tricks on how to travel to Disney on a budget. And so she wanted to write a book, so she's reading a book on how to write a book. And so I've always had like that business, inquisitive, entrepreneurial mindset. And so what did I do? Every time I sat next to her in the break room, I picked her brain. Okay, what did we learn this time? What did we learn this time? So essentially I read the book without reading the book. And for her, it led to her publishing a like tips and tricks on how to budget to travel to Disney. And for me, one of the things that the book was teaching you when you were reading it, or while I was asking about her reading it, was if you're going to write an ebook and you want to have the best chance of success in terms of people actually paying for it, the #1 most purchased category for ebooks, and this was early 2011 maybe, super early 2011, but so I don't know if this is still true, but the #1 topic that people search for is self-help stuff, essentially how to. People want to learn how to do new things, inherit new skills, and so you want to write something that is essentially educational. This is how you do XYZ. And so it said, okay, figure out of all the skill sets that you have, what is something that you have the biggest gap between where your skill level is and then where the average person's skill level is. And I mean, as silly as it sounded at the time, if I were to tell somebody outside of, you know, what I've been doing for the past couple decades, I was like, man, like, I don't think like, I mean, I went to school for acting, but I don't think I'm like the best actor in the world by a mile where I could teach somebody who's mediocre at acting. I'm like, maybe I could, but I don't know. That's not something I can really put into a book. And so I started thinking, like, what's something that I'm very, very successful at? And it came down to two categories. It was video games. I had actually competed in national video game tournaments. I think the first one I did was in 2004. I was in the National Halo 2 tournament. Got pretty far in it. Almost won the whole thing. And I'm like, I can't. It's hard to write about video games. Like, these things are visual. These things need like the visual stuff. It's hard to put this stuff into words. But what I could put into words was the fact that up until this time, I had won an insane amount of fantasy football leagues. I was like, okay, that's something I can write, because that's something that is statistical, something I can put on paper, and something I can explain to people. And so I took these questions sitting next to my coworker, asking all these questions, picking her brain. I was asking, how, what's the best thing about to do this, how to write the ebook. And then it came to the decision of, I'm actually going to write an ebook teaching people how to play fantasy football. So I specifically focused on beginners, because I was not the best fantasy football player in the world in any way that claims they are, or just fool themselves and stupid. So I'm not the best fantasy player in the world, even though technically, as of this recording on this date, I'll get to why this date's very important for me in a bit, but earlier today, the Open Championship just wrapped. Scotty Scheffler won, and I actually won not just another fantasy league. I won the most prestigious season-long fantasy golf league in the entire sports betting and fantasy sports industry. So it's like I'm competing against all the other elites from all the other people in the industry. And so I won that earlier today. So that actually pads the resume of, I kind of know some tips and tricks when it comes to fantasy sports. So I published a book in, I don't know if it was like maybe, I think it was March 2011. It was Fantasy Football for Beginners. That's the name of the book, Fantasy Football for Beginners. And then, I had it on there, and I put it on something that was like really cheap, like $5 or less. I played around with the pricing, and then, promoted it and stuff, got some reviews on it, and people started like getting it, especially because I published it in March for football, that once it started like kind of, the wheels were getting greased right in time. So when football started and everybody's inviting their friends and their coworkers to fantasy leagues, people were buying my book to make sure that they weren't completely dumb when it came to their draft and everything else. And so had a little success with that. It actually got on Apple, the App Store, or not the App Store, but the Apple ebook store, in the category of new and noteworthy for sports, and it actually got to like the number one during the time where it kind of picked up. So that was kind of cool. So what I did is I took that, and then what I did is I wrote another book. I was like, I've actually done really well with fantasy baseball leagues throughout this time of my life so far. So I published another book maybe 5 or 6 months later, Fantasy Baseball for Beginners. Now, technically, both of these books are still available. I have not updated them. The teachings in them may not be the same as they are today, because this, again, was 14 years ago. But there's still a lot of good stuff. If you have never played a fantasy sport and somebody's inviting you to play one, it's still worth getting. And so I did that second one. Now, around this time, this is when FanDuel and DraftKings were like catching like legit fire. They've already been out for a little bit, but they're catching real fire over the next like year or two. And so what I did with this like little fantasy sports brand that I did with these 2 published books is I created my solo brand. My solo brand was called Mr. Fantasy Guru. So that was my name. That was my brand. I was Mr. Fantasy Guru. And what I did with that, I mean, the only thing that I really monetized with that on a business side of things was I had this through this like third party service. People would pay per minute to get fantasy football advice. Typically, there's like a Sunday morning thing I always did. So it was like a chat service. So they went to I had a URL. They went to the site. They tapped on something, and then they had for like the length of the time the chat was open on the back and forth, it would charge like, I don't know, something small per minute. But if they chatted long enough and they asked all the questions, like, who should I start, this receiver, this receiver, okay, who should I pick up, this running back or this running back? And so it's just kind of like helping them set their lineup. So that's kind of what Mr. Fantasy Guru was doing a little bit on top of publishing the books. I wasn't really doing anything in terms of video content, wasn't doing things in terms of like website development or app development or anything close to what PlayerProps.ai is doing by a mile. And then 2013 comes around. So what I'm still doing is I'm still hosting shows for Nickelodeon. So that never stopped in this timeline that we're going to eventually catch up to 2025 with. And so I'm still hosting shows, but in the off time, I'm kind of doing all these other small things to just essentially is like gas money, just to get extra gas money. And then in 2013, after a few years of FanDuel and DraftKings putting trillions of dollars into, all the, I don't know if you remember I forgot what year it was, but it was around there where every commercial on ESPN was a DraftKings commercial. Like they bought all of the airtime. So if you weren't watching SportsCenter, you were watching a DraftKings ad. And so I was like, hey, I've now taught people how to play fantasy football and fantasy baseball in 2011. Let me write a new book. And this time I'm going to tell them how to monetize the skill sets that I've already taught them. So the third book that was published in 2013 was called Making Money with Fantasy Sports, and was typically about these daily things that come out of the woodwork. Now, were other opportunities where you can win money doing the season-long stuff. There still is. I still like dabbling in those things as well, but this is kind of the daily stuff, the stuff that DraftKings and FanDuel was doing, and then everybody else was doing that they eventually acquired, was the daily stuff. And so I wrote about that a lot as well, and how to kind of have the right mindset. So I'm still hosting shows for Nickelodeon. So this is 2013. So 2014, still hosting shows. 2015, still hosting shows. And then it just gets to a point where I've now been working for Nickelodeon for like 5 or 6 years, right? So I'm working for Nickelodeon for like 5 or 6 years, and the money that I'm making is I'm getting $15 an hour. Now, see, $15 an hour is nothing to necessarily scoff at, but my viewpoint was I've put in like 5 or 6 years of my life into this company. I have a bachelor's degree, which not every single person that was working or in the entertainment department had one, and so I was kind of getting paid a similar amount to people that were just getting hired without a bachelor's degree. I was like, I've put too much work into this company, of my life into this company. I should be getting more than $15 an hour. Like, people are spending an insane amount of money to come to this Nickelodeon hotel to do all these things. And so while I'm starting to have these thoughts about this isn't right, I'm not getting paid anywhere close to what I deserve or what I've earned, simultaneously, I run into somebody through social media, and I can't remember if he reached out to me or I reached out to him, but he had his own fantasy company that was very heavily on the articles and the cheat sheets, specifically for, again, FanDuel and DraftKings, these lineup stuff. And so I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, I do my own thing, but he's already got him and a handful of writers. So I started like doing some articles and stuff for him and things like that. And this is kind of around 2015. And then 2016 happens. In 2016, I want to say like super, super early. So like January 2016, I'm completely frustrated with my job. I've put in too much time to not get, too much time. And also adding in the bachelor's degree, you should never be paid equal if you put in time to be, you should never be hired. How do I want to word that? So if there's two people and they get hired at the same time, and one person has a degree and one person has no degree whatsoever, by default, the other person that has the degree, if the experience and everything is equal, the person that has a degree should have a higher amount because they put in the time and the money to get the degree. And that may not be a universally accepted thing. You may be like, hey, if they're just better, they're better. But I still feel like there should be some value to that, especially if my degree is in the department of what I'm doing anyway. And so again, this all just had all these frustrations. And so what I did, if you guys have ever searched for a job online, you're familiar with the Indeed app, I'm sure, one of the most popular ones. And so I'm like, what do I even search for? What am I even going to do with my life that's not entertainment? Because clearly I have a really good gig in terms of it's the best job I've ever had. I enjoy it. I enjoy entertaining people. I enjoy hosting shows. I enjoy that stuff to death. But like, what do I even, if I'm not doing entertainment, like I didn't plan for a plan B. I was so adamant that I was going to be a successful actor, which blossomed into being a successful live show game show host or just live show host. I'm like, man, I didn't really create a backup plan because I was pretty confident that was going to work out. Not saying it didn't work out, but again, I wasn't getting paid what I earned and what I deserved. So I went on Indeed, and again, this is probably January 2016, and I'm just like staring at the app, and it's like, okay, put in your keywords, your search words. What's something you want to look for? And I'm just like, I don't even know. And so I started typing in things that I might have interest in. I mean, again, we went back to the video game stuff, the tournaments. I'm like, how to maybe making video games. That was actually something I was originally going to go for extended education with to, I guess you can call it college, was to do computer animation and game design, but that just became too expensive where I couldn't do that. And then I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to focus on the acting side of things. So I played around with that, and I just started searching things, and nothing popped up that was even remotely interesting. So if it requires like an 8 out of 10 score on interest for me to actually apply for the job on Indeed, I wasn't even giving past like the 2 or 3. I'm like, no, I'm not going to apply for that. And so it got to a point where my frustrations with my job just kept increasing and increasing. Every interaction with the entertainment directors that I did not get along with and all these other things, I was like, I got to get out of here. And I go, you know what? Actually, sorry, I left out a very, very small thing or something that's important. I skipped ahead in the timeline. Bear with me. Before we got to this point, this is January 2016. I do want to go back to 2015 real quick. So in 2015, I still was not happy with my job in terms of how much I was getting paid, and I was trying to get paid. I was trying to get the raise that I earned and deserved, but wasn't getting, and kept getting shut down by the directors of the department and stuff like that, and screwed over. So in 2015, I actually found through social media a company that was like DraftKings and FanDuel. It was called DraftPot. And so the difference with DraftPot from DraftKings and FanDuel, if you've ever did the lineup stuff on DraftKings and FanDuel, you know there's like a $50,000 salary, and you have to choose players that fit that salary. So you can't just put like all the studs. You have to pick and choose how much of this fake salary you're going to spend on people. So DraftPot comes out, and they're like, you know, salary doesn't matter, no salary. And so you literally can stack all the studs if you wanted to. And so we connected on social media somehow, and I was like, and they said, hey, we're new. We're growing. It looks like you're doing a good job with some content stuff that you're doing. We are looking for a user acquisition specialist, so essentially someone to grow their user base, to promote and grow and build a lot of things. And I said, hey, I'm getting paid jack at my job, so it's not that hard to steal me away. I could have lied and said like, no, like you would have to pay me like trillions of dollars to take me away, but then they would just run away like, oh, we don't have that money, and then that would be the end of that conversation. So instead of lying to them, I was like, listen, this is my situation. I'm working in the best job I ever had. I'm getting paid horribly for it. If you want to take me away, this is the number it would need. Like, this is barely above what I'm making now, but this is money that I'd be like, yes, I would stop doing entertainment. I would focus on the fantasy sports side, which over the past 3 or 4 years in the story has been budding more and more interest because I published the books, I've done this other stuff. And so I got that job as the the lead user acquisition specialist for a DraftKings or FanDuel, just a lot smaller, newer one. That company did not last that long. So I actually left Nickelodeon to work that company, and there's just a lot of chaos that happened in the fantasy sports space. And so that company did not last, 4 or 5 months, I think. And so I left this job for 6 years. I started this job. I was at this job for like 5 months, and then apparently they just started like cutting everybody, and eventually sold away for scraps. But the interesting thing about DraftPot, for those that know, if you haven't heard about it, the CEO of that company, who's a genius guy, is actually now the CEO of a one of the most popular fantasy prop apps, and I don't even say most popular sports books because they're only active in like 2 or 3 states. But he went on. He kept working and building new things in the fantasy sports and sports betting side, and now he runs with Jake Paul of the Paul brothers, uh, of Jake Paul and Logan, for those that pay attention to social media at all. But him and Jake Paul started a new sportsbook slash fantasy prop app called Better, which is BETR. And so it was really cool to see him continue to do things. And we still actually run into each other at these conferences. So I still see him, we still chat, and we're still, talking and stuff like that. And so that fizzled out like right after I got married. So I got married around like fall 2015. I know exactly the date I got married. I'm just trying to paint a picture here. So I get I leave Nickelodeon. I take this job, I think in spring or early summer 2015. I get married in fall 2015. And then essentially, like, as I return from my honeymoon in fall or early winter 2015, he's like, hey, this isn't, we're not gonna be able to stay afloat. And then I was like, all right, well, I'm guessing I'm going back to Nickelodeon. I mean, Nickelodeon didn't hate me for leaving. They knew that I wanted to greener pastures, and so I was like, "Hey, I'm coming back." They're like, "All right, no problem. You still know all the shows, you still know all these things. Cool, you're back." So then I went back to Nickelodeon. So this was me leaving for greener pastures for things that would eventually make me more money or guaranteed to make me more money. The company fizzled out early. I get back to Nickelodeon, and so then now we're in the beginning of 2016, and I just mentioned when I paused and backtracked, January 2016. So I'm still frustrated with the money situation. I still love working. I wouldn't say love working for Nickelodeon. I love hosting the shows. I thrive with a microphone in my hand, and I loved hosting the shows. I was I was built to do that, and so I loved it. But still, I was getting paid poop. So that brain, the little bug in the back of the brain, kept going, "Hey, you got to keep. You found something. It worked out for a short little bit. Then the company that fizzled out. Keep grinding, keep working." And so again, now we're fast forwarding to where we left off. I'm on the Indeed app. I'm searching. I can't figure out the right keywords for something that'll interest me enough to look into it and apply for it. And then after like a month of searching, I go, you know what? I do not care anymore. I do not care what I do on a daily basis. I just want to get paid this much money. This is how much salary or how much income I want to have for a calendar year. And I do not care anymore what I have to do to get that to happen. So what did I do? I started searching by salary. I plugged in a certain number. I started looking at things, and I go, you know what? If I'm doing something that I'm not going to love, I'm going to get paid a little bit more. And so I searched for a number. Now, remember, I mean, I wasn't even working I was getting maybe 35 hours a week, $15 an hour. So getting something that paid me where I was less upset about how much money I was making for how much of my life I put into something. It wasn't a crazy number of what it would be today, but it was a number that I felt like a lot of jobs potentially would qualify there. So I searched for this certain salary that I wanted. And again, it wasn't a crazy number. It was a realistic number. It's the same thing. It's the same mindset that I teach you guys with PlayerProps.ai. You don't chase the 10-pick parlays. You chase profit. You chase a better bankroll than at the end of the day than what you started with. The people that are changing that, if I were to type in like $100,000 or $150,000, that was unlikely given my situation, my resume, and everything. And so I chose a realistic number. I typed it in, and I came across this job, which was with Wyndham. And if you don't know Wyndham, like the resorts, hotel chain thing, and I applied for it, or I had a phone call before I came in from an initial interview. I'm not joking or kidding at all. I went in for this interview without having any clue, not even the slightest clue of my job responsibilities. I understood the company I was working for was a resorts hotel company. I came in, I saw maybe the job title I saw, but I didn't understand anything of what it meant. So I was so adamant about I'm going to do whatever it takes in my power to make more money that I applied for a job that I had no idea what it meant or what it was. It was just a company I recognized. If it's a company I recognized, then it wouldn't fizzle out in 5 months like the company I just recently applied for the year earlier. Let me do this. So I come in for the interview, and then, I crush the interview, and I actually accept the job of, well, the thing that made me accept the job, okay, let me finish that first thought. I accept the job without still knowing my job responsibilities. Why did I accept that job? Because he looked me in the face and he goes, if you do the absolute worst job, if you are bottom of the barrel, scraping by, and you do the worst job at your job, if you are the worst person in this department, but you're not bad enough to get fired, so if you do the absolute worst job, but like a peg above getting fired, you do horrible, but not enough to get fired, you are guaranteed to make the amount of money that you were searching for on Indeed. So that was the bar. The bar was I sucked. If I sucked, I would get paid the amount of money I was looking for. And then I go, okay, if that is the bare minimum, which is what I'm looking to make, and I don't think I'm a very competitive person. If I'm competing against other people in departments or I'm competing against myself, I know that I apply myself to things that are very, very important. And of course, this would be that category. And so I go, I don't see a situation where I would be the worst person in this department. So in my mind, even if I was, I'm guaranteed the amount of money I was looking for. So I accepted the job. And then the next day or whatever, when I came in for my orientation, I actually learned what I was doing. And I go, okay, I get it. And so with this job, I guess a quick gist of how this job works is my title was an inbound sales agent. And what it was is like if you were talking on the phone to any of our partners, whether it was like Wyndham Rewards or other hotel chains we're partnering with or anything like that, on your own free will and whatever, at the end of that call, the person would say, would you like to be transferred to our vacation resorts department to learn about opportunities for discounted vacations? And if you said yes, you came to me. If you said no, that's the end of the phone call. So then you come to me, and then essentially what I did is I would tell you about these very, very discounted vacations that like are such crazy opportunities that 90% of people that hear the opportunity think it's too good to be true because it's that good. And so what I was selling in a nutshell, and again, this doesn't really have much to do with the rest of the story, but I know I've already built this up, so you're probably interested. But it was a vacation that was either like 3 days and 2 nights or 4 days and 3 nights. You would pay, for 3 days and 2 nights, it'd be like $199, and this is for 2 adults. For 4 days and 3 nights, it might be something like $229, $249, or depending. And you pay that over the phone. You get everything sent to you, and then you have 12 months to use it. And you have like an insane amount of cities you can use this in. Now, the caveat of why it's so, well, it actually gets better than that. But the caveat of why it's so inexpensive in the first place, and you can stay at like really, really nice places with this. And I'm sure this still exists with a bunch of different hotel properties. So now you know that, hey, it's not a scam. It's actually worth it. And plenty of my friends took advantage of the fact that it wasn't a scam. Is during your stay, wherever you went, you had to sit through a 120-minute timeshare sales presentation. So this is where they spend 2 hours walking you through like one of the timeshare resorts that are nearby to where you're staying and tell about the opportunities and go through all the finances and the income and stuff. You listen to them for a minimum of 120 minutes. And then they say, so which of these packages would you like? And all you say is, hey, no, thank you. I don't want any of them. It's as simple as that. So your entire 4-day, 3-night trip, you're spending 2 hours hearing a sales pitch, and you say no. But here's the best part. So let's say the 4-day, 3-night was like $199 or whatever, just like $200 even. After you finish the presentation, regardless of what you say, if you say no immediately, they will give you 2 things. They gave you a $200 American Express gift card that can be used on pretty much anything in the country. and that had $200 on it. So keep in mind, you just paid $200 for this trip, not including like parking fees and resort fees and all the hidden stuff. But you paid for the stay. You paid $200. You just got that handed back to you. So now it's at $0. Then the other thing that we added was we gave you a certificate to get $100 off a night at like a 5,000 different hotels. So a certificate for a future stay at one of the hotels they own. And this, like explaining this to people, they're like, that doesn't make sense. Like you're essentially paying me to go stay at one of your hotels. And that's exactly what it was. Like Wyndham would pay to go there as long as you gave them 2 hours of your time. Now, the thing is, you couldn't get out of that. You cannot go and then not go to the 2-hour sales presentation because then you'll get charged the full amount. Like that's what you're agreeing to. But because it sounded over the phone too good to be true, a prime success rate of selling these vacation opportunities was like 8%. So essentially, if you're the top of the department, 92% of people are still saying no. But I focused. I was like, okay, who's making the most money? And they're like, these two people are making $100,000 a year doing this. And so I go, I want to listen on their phone calls. I'm going to start taking notes. What are they saying? How are they delivering the information? So I was making well more than the number I was searching for in Indeed. I became the top of my department in a very short period of time. I was crushing it. I give credit to the fact that, I'm a very good person when it comes to talking, personable and everything like that. And so I just had these like friendly conversations and people were like, yeah, okay, here's the information, here's my credit card information. And, we get them set up and send the emails out and go from there. So I did really, really well with that. Now, let's continue to the story that has actually to do with this date. And I'm recording this on July 20th. So I do so well that they bring a program. So I get hired in March 2016. Fast forward, I'm no longer working at Nickelodeon. I'm now working full-time for Wyndham in this call center, crushing it, making much, much more money than I had than the bare minimum that I was searching for. And then fast forward to the beginning of 2017, I think it was maybe like a year into it, because you had to be a year for this thing to happen. So like about a year into me working for Wyndham, maybe it was March 2016. So yeah, I would say let's just say March 2017. They introduce a program. They go, hey, for the people that are crushing it the most, to reward them for crushing it and to give the people who aren't crushing it more motivation, you can actually work out of your home. And I was like, wait. So I'm doing the exact same thing in my pajamas, just taking calls from like a home office I would set up. And nothing changes except for the fact that I'm saving hundreds of dollars on tolls and gas money and wear and tear on my car. And I also get to do this in my pajamas. I don't have to worry about dressing up and driving or anything like that. Heck yeah, I'm going to sign up for that because, again, I was the top of my department. I was one of the first person. I applied for it, and they interviewed and like, hey, do you want to do this? I go, yeah, I definitely want to do this. Saving money is very important to making more money. You want to be rich or more rich than what you are. It's not only about increasing your income. It's all about decreasing your expenses. So I get this opportunity. So I want to maybe summer. Let's just say May. I don't have the exact time for the year, but let's just say May 2017. They give me all the equipment. I bring it up. I have my own. My man cave that was my game room is now my work office. And this was actually the same room that you guys first saw me in before I moved into this house and set up this cool YouTube studio. So when you go back to the videos prior to March of this year, that is the home studio setup and everything. I mean, it didn't look as great as it did then, but in 2017, I did with what I could. So I'm working from home now. Now, what is this? 30 minutes into this episode, we're now going to get to the point of why I wanted to record this video on this day. So in this house that I lived in that we recently sold to move into this house earlier this year, there was a fence dividing our backyard. Like when you look out our back door, the fence that you saw straight ahead, that house on the other side, there was a fence dividing those 2 yards. And this fence was like decaying like crazy. And we had 2 dogs. And one of the dogs, which you've seen on some of my videos, I think I've showed her sometimes, Peach. She's a very small but bulky French bulldog. And the problem with French bulldogs is they're small, but they think that they're the lion in the fight. They think that they're always the biggest dog. They don't understand that they're smaller, and they will bark at and try to fight like Great Danes or gorillas if they can. And so they just have that's their mental attitude. They're the biggest dog in the fight, regardless of their size. So this fence was decaying, and these panels were like coming off. And so I'm reaching out to the guy of the family that lives on the other side, like, hey, like you need to fix your fence because like my dogs are seeing that there's like a hole in the fence. We had a hurricane that blew down an entire panel that I couldn't even put back up because I had to be in his yard to nail it back to the post. So I had to get him to do that, and I had to lift it up for him. And so I'm doing all these things, and I was like, bro, like you have to fix this. He goes, that's not in our finances right now. I'm like, no, you're a homeowner. You have to fix this. Like this, I don't want to keep chasing my dogs if they get through this hole. And that actually happened like at least 2 times. The little French bulldog got through a broken panel, and then I had to essentially jump over the 6-foot privacy fence. I had to vault it to get the dog and then pass her back over the fence, and then again vault back over this 6-foot privacy fence. And so I'm just like, bro, like you have to fix this. And then it got to a point where I go, you know what? All that you need to do is you pay half. I will pay half so we can get this done, and you don't have to do any of the work. I will put it up myself. I'm just not going to pay to replace your fence that you're clearly being negligent on. You haven't upkeeped, and now it's causing an issue. Why it was causing an issue is there was a very, very large, aggressive, unchained pit bull that came into his backyard a handful of times that would try to chew the fence that was already decaying to get to our small French bulldog who was barking back because, again, she thinks that she's a lion. And the problem is that when I told him about this, he goes, we don't have a dog. So their situation was so screwed up that somebody else's dog kept getting access to their yard, which should already be a problem for them because they have a little girl, and the little girl going in the backyard, not knowing that there's just a pit bull running around that may or may not be extremely aggressive, could cause problems. But again, clearly it was an issue for him. So, we're like a year into this debate, or this fight of going back and forth. I'm like, bro, fix your fence. And he's not even taking the offer where I'm paying half of what I don't even have to pay for, and I'm doing all the work. And he's still being very, very stupid and frugal, like, oh, I can't afford that right now. I'm like, you have to, because there's going to be a lot of legal problems here if you don't. So you have to. You got to do it. So fast forward now to today's date, July 20th, 2017. I'm working, and all the things I said go into this so far. So I'm working for Wyndham out of my home office. I'm about to start my shift in like 30 minutes. I don't know if my wife was working this day or if she was off. Not 100% sure. I'm just going to say that she wasn't working because she was still home. And I'm like in my socks because you don't have to wear shoes when you work from your home office. Right now, I'm recording this with 0 socks and 0 shoes on. And I remember I had already had this little dog get through the fence at least twice, and I've already had to jump the fence at least twice. And we've already known that there's a big, big pit bull that somehow from somebody else's yard gets into the back and tries to chew through the fence that's already very broken to get to the French bulldog. So I'm sitting down in my office about to start things, and I guess my wife opens the sliding glass door to let her out, and then she goes into the master bedroom to get something. And then she comes back out, and then I want to say screams, but in a very fearful manner, says very loudly, I can't find Peach, the name of the French bulldog. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, did she get through the gosh dang fence again? And so I'm frustrated more than anything because this shouldn't have happened based on the fact that I offered to pay half this guy's fence and put the whole thing up for him. So I get out the fence. I already know that she's through the fence, or I get out the backyard through the sliding glass door. I then vault the 6-foot privacy fence. I landed on my feet, but the millisecond my feet hit the ground, I felt this, call it a vibration, just go from my feet all the way up my back. Immediately I knew something bad just happened. But I was hyped up on adrenaline because I was trying to make sure my dog wasn't getting torn in half by this pit bull. This dumb neighbor wouldn't even keep his yard from accessing. And so I grabbed the dog, wife's on the other side of the fence, passed the little French bulldog over. And then when I do what I've done the past 2 or 3 times is jump back over the fence, every part of your body, so your body is a machine. There's a bunch of different mechanisms that work things. Like it's essentially a robot, but instead of metal, it's bone. The pieces of your body that are required to get your feet off the ground, like if you just want to do like a little bunny hop, those were like all shut off. Like none of those were working. And so I went to go vault and I couldn't even get my feet like off the ground. I'm not saying I couldn't vault a 6-foot fence. I could not get my feet off the ground. If you paid me $1 million to jump, I could not do it. Something was very, very wrong. And I go, well, I'm trapped in this guy's backyard of this idiot neighbor. So I'm like, it was a different neighborhood. So I like walk all the way around the neighborhood. I go, I don't want to do that because I'm very afraid of what I just did to my body. So my wife got this tall step ladder. We put it over the fence where I walked up one side, walked down the other side. And I'm like, oh man, like something hurts, but whatever. I'm just going to go back to work because that's what I was doing anyway. And I go to sit in a chair. A gamer chair similar to the one I have right now. And I was like, oh no, I cannot sit down. This is very painful. So again, I call in, say there's a freak accident happened, call in. And after MRIs and x-rays and all these things, the news was that I completely herniated my L4 and L5 on this vault of this saving the French Bulldog from potential destroyed by pit bull scenario. And like almost threw up in my mouth when the person reviewing the x-rays and MRIs like, oh, you're definitely going to have permanent back damage. Like, I've seen so many horror movies of people getting ripped to shreds and like no issue whatsoever. Nothing's ever made me like gag or like, oh my gosh, I'm going to throw up. That's disgusting. Hearing the fact that something I was aggressively trying to avoid for over a year with this idiot neighbor has now caused me to be not permanently disabled, but permanent. I mean, having back damage, there's a lot of things I can't do now. Like if I tried to like to deadlift anything at the gym, I would die. So they're just hearing permanent back damage, just like I almost threw up in my mouth. And that's not even like me like saying, oh, that's what I felt. Like I had to stop from throwing up in my mouth from hearing that. And it was just like, my life has been changed forever because of this horrible idiot neighbor who was just stupid and didn't care about anything in the world and didn't care about anybody. And so now my lower back, and I was a very physically active person my entire life. I played soccer for 7 years. I did football for 4 years. I did some baseball. I did all kinds of stuff, athletics, and I did competitive weightlifting as well. And now I'm being told that the body that, I mean, up till this point, I wasn't like in peak shape because this is well after high school. But like just hearing that, like there's things like my body has changed forever, negatively changed forever, just so frustrating. And so since I couldn't sit down, I couldn't take calls. And so I went on short-term disability. And I don't remember how long this was, if this was 6 weeks or 8 weeks. I mean, we'll just use the lower number. Let's say it's 6 weeks. So I went on short-term disability for 6 weeks. So if you've never had that, that essentially means that I'm not working, but I'm getting paid like 40% of my base income. So I'm not making anywhere near the amount of money that I'd be making if I was taking calls. But I was just resting and laying down because like sitting hurt so bad. And then I started, just doing some stretches and stuff and trying to get back to a point where I wasn't like walking with a cane or anything. During these 6 weeks, so if you remember from the beginning of the story to now, I was gung-ho on entertainment. I wanted to entertain people. That's what I wanted to do with my life. I wanted to entertain people, make people laugh, make people smile. Went to school for acting. I did a lot of acting in high school, went to college for acting, got the degree, did the live show entertainment stuff, loved it to death, wasn't getting paid what I was due, so I went to all this stuff. So now I'm going through a 6-week short-term disability. My life has shifted. Now what is happening is my priorities are shifting because my life has got flipped upside down. My priority was I love entertaining people. Then my priority became I wish I got paid what I was worth and how much I've earned for entertaining people. Then my priority became entertaining people is not worth it if I'm not getting paid what I should be getting paid. So let me focus on money over everything. And that mindset is what got me to start searching for salaries on Indeed, which got me that Wyndham job, which is what I was about to work what I was working at when I had this freak injury, this back injury. So now my priorities had shifted. I was doing money over everything. Did I enjoy my job? I mean, I enjoyed making money, so it was very easy to enjoy my job when I was making sales and things, but it was very frustrating to have like 90% of my phone calls not be positive endings. And so my mindset became money is very important, but try to do something that you actually enjoy, even if you make less money, and then try to grow it. Try to do something where you can grow it yourself and you can make more money, because Nickelodeon, you're at if the directors of the department don't want to pay you more, they don't have to pay you more. No matter what, like they can screw you over and it doesn't matter. But it became, okay, find a situation where you can't be screwed over. And so I'm about to finish my 6 weeks of short-term disability. And if you remember, I said back in 2015, I found this fantasy sports company that not the draft pot, the no salary cap one, but the one that I was kind of creating articles for, and I kept in touch with. And I reached out to the CEO of this company during this time frame, and I go, what's the most amount of money that you can pay me? Because I'm about to leave this full-time job and I want to focus on things I have control over. And he's like, I can't pay you much of anything. He said, like, I can do $150 a week if you can do like, I think 8 hours of work. So essentially writing like 5 articles a week, essentially for $150 a week. And so I go, okay, well, that's definitely not going to pay the bills, but let me find something else that I can do with that to pay the bills. And so I had a friend whose wife was working for this company where you would do one-on-one video calls with these kids in China, and you would essentially be teaching these kids in China through like a Skype face call how to speak English. Now, if you got the kids that are very, very young, let's say 4, 5, 6, most of what you were doing is teaching them how to speak English. But then you got the older ones that are maybe like 5th graders, 6th graders, and those students already knew English, and you're teaching them more about like American culture and American history and things like that. And so that was something where I would open up the time slots that I was available, and then Chinese parents of Chinese students living in China would then book whatever thing they wanted to book or whatever. So they based it on like positive reviews from other teachers and many different things. So you may not know this, but a very interesting thing is that here in the US, female teachers are like 90% of teachers. In China, it is almost completely reversed. Male teachers are the dominant gender of teachers. So because I was a male teacher for Chinese students, I actually started getting booked like crazy. And what it broke down to, like hourly wise, so if every class I taught was one-on-one with one kid, and it was a 30-minute class. Now, keep in mind, they're in China, so they're working on their hours, on the hours of them being in Hong Kong or whatever it may be. So my shift that I would open up for myself was essentially like 4 a.m. to like 9 a.m. So like I would open up 5 hours worth of stuff. Maybe sometimes it was like 5 to 9, but that was 9 a.m. was like the latest, because then it's really too late for them. They're in bed on their own time. So I started opening up these classes, and I started doing like, I really well. Like I was having the interactions that I remember having with Nickelodeon, because I would have talked to kids there all the time. Like that was Nickelodeon was all about, amazing interactions with kids. And so I would talk to these kids like, okay, this is something I have fun with. I wasn't having fun teaching kids English, but I was able to set my stuff up to where I wasn't getting the super, super, super baby kids. I was getting the kids that knew English and that just wanted to learn more, that had different course material, like the American history and stuff like that. Because then I was able to strike up more conversation with them. And so I did that. Uh, I think how much money was I making? I think I was making, so if you count 2 classes an hour, everyone's 30 minutes. So an hour, I was probably making about 20, I think I started at like $23 an hour. So keep in mind, prior to Wyndham, I was getting paid $15 an hour with an acting degree at a job that I worked at for 5 or 6 years. And then fast forward, staying on the mantra of I need to have a better life because I'm not going to be working for $15 an hour with this company anymore. Like, no, they've essentially squeezed all the juice. I'm not going to take it anymore. I'm getting out of here. And now I'm starting this thing where I control my own hours. If I don't want to work at all, I don't have to open up any class like times, and I'm getting paid $23 an hour. And on top of that, I'm also getting paid, if you remember, $150 a week for writing articles for this other fantasy sports company. So I told Wyndham after 6 weeks of short-term disability, I go, I can't do this anymore. Like I was top of my department. I was having amazing paychecks. I was crushing it. But I wanted to have more of that twinkle of passion that kept me at Nickelodeon so long. I wanted, not saying that I wanted to host shows again, which I mean, I've always loved to host shows, but I wanted to enjoy things more, even if I was getting paid less. So I actually took, it was like a 70%, that's a 7-0, from the money I was making prior to the injury, the freak accident, to the money that I was making when I first left them and started doing this fantasy articles and Chinese education stuff. It was like a 70% pay cut. And so I it was like one of the biggest risks, or if not the biggest risk I ever took. I left a company that was paying what I was earning through like the commissions and stuff, and it just got crazy where things happened, a priority shift. And so luckily I had a spouse who was knowledgeable of my drive for success, and knowing that I wasn't quitting something because it was difficult. I was quitting something that I was crushing at because I wanted to have more happiness in my life and enjoy things more. So I did the Chinese company I worked at for like, I don't even know when I stopped doing that. It was like 2 years, I think. So like Monday through Friday, 2 years. If I didn't want to work a day, I would put things there, but I was waking up at 4 o'clock and teaching kids from like 5 to 9 Monday through Friday, and then I would go back to sleep at 9 a.m. and then I would wake up after a power nap, and then I would get into the fantasy sports stuff. So that fantasy sports company, we grew that. We added a sports betting part of it, and then we actually had that company acquired in March of 2024. So I was essentially there, and I helped. I went from just writing articles to, I feel like I can help more on the business side of things as opposed to writing articles. Let the people that are crushing the articles, and this, if you know the guy that does like our short videos on the YouTube channel, and he's in our Discord a lot, Ben, so when I first started working with Ben, it was like 2017, and he was creating articles and stuff. I was like, all right, Ben's crushing it with these articles. I'm going to focus on the business side. So focused on the business side, got bumped up eventually in a short period of time to COO of the company, and we got it to a point where it was acquired in March of 2024. And that's actually the same month that I launched PlayerProps.ai. So so we ran this company that was very human content article cheat sheet based, and I wanted to build something that didn't require there necessarily to be a human to create an article or whatever it was. I want to create something that was available no matter where in the world you are. And we actually have users, like I can see when I look at my data, I have users from all over the planet, which is crazy awesome. So thank you to everybody. So it's not just North American based. Anybody on planet Earth can download our app and use it for whatever sportsbook they want to. So I essentially also took a big risk of starting something from scratch again, but I had a lot of boxes I had checked off. I've been in the space. I've been in the space for 14 and a half years because I first got into the sports betting fantasy sports space, if you remember, when I published those books back in 2011. So I've been dabbling in the space now for a decade and a half, and I have been going to all these conferences and meeting all these people. And just got to a point where I saw there's the two biggest things that I had the biggest frustrations with, that I hated the most and wanted to change the most, which is what eventually led to PlayerProps.ai, was so if you ever see a commercial or you see any company post anything, you always see fine print where it says like gamble responsibly, 21 plus, call 1-800-GAMBLER. And so you may not pay attention to that too much, but essentially that's what we call in the industry responsible gambling. And so there's a responsible gambling branch of the industry where you have to do X, Y, Z, or you're not able to do A, B, C. And so if you don't post a 1-800-GAMBLER number, you can't do this. But the thing that was so stupid to me, and it is still stupid, which is something I'm still trying to fight, is the entire responsible gambling industry is 100% reactive. It's a bunch of firefighters who are trained to put out fires. That is not a bad thing, that there are firefighters trained to put out fires, because people will often set their house on fire in the sports betting metaphor. But what I saw was missing and what I saw was necessary is there needs to be a proactive solution. I'm going to create something that is going to teach people how to cook so they don't set their house on fire in the first place. So I'm going to create something that is proactive. It's very educational, education forward. I'm going to take people making the worst decisions possible on a daily basis, bleeding through their hard-earned money, and I'm going to teach them how to bet responsibly, how to bet with bankroll management, with our 20-80-20 rule that I say in every single video. We always have someone saying, they'll say like, hey, I used your app today and it didn't work out. Can you tell me what I did wrong? And they'll show me a screenshot where it's like it's a 10 pick parlay where 9 out of 10 hit. And they won $0 because they didn't listen to the 20-80-20 rule. If they followed that one major guideline, we have a bunch of guidelines, but that's the biggest guideline. If you follow that one, you make a ton of profit when you hit 9 out of 10. And so you can't just like use my app however you want to. It's designed to be used in a responsible manner, and you have to use it as designed. If you try to guess how to use it and you do your own thing, you could have success, but chances are you may not. But it is impossible to ignore all my guidelines it is impossible to follow all my guidelines and not curb your losses. I have a guarantee, and I've been saying this since day one. If you come in, you're losing a lot of bets. That's how you find me. And you come in and you follow all of my guidelines without cherry picking, without skipping any of them, I guarantee you will lose less often. That's the beauty of what I teach. I know what you're doing wrong even before you find me. I know exactly what you're doing wrong, even before you find me. So as soon as you find me, it's like, boom, this is what you're doing wrong, do this, problem solved. So now we're looking at March 2024. We just have the other company that just got acquired. I'm now solo running this responsible sports betting research app. And yeah, it's just like all of the drive that I had. Now, this is the first time that I truly control like 100% of my life, because even when I was with Wyndham controlled my not my hourly, but controlled my schedule. And even when I was working for the startup fantasy company and for this teaching the Chinese kids thing, I wasn't my own boss outside of the fact that I could run my own schedule, but I was still, getting paid by the company. And then when I was working and writing articles for the other company, I was getting paid by the company. And now this is essentially my company, 100% mine. And that just increases the fire and the drive, where I created something, it's clearly working. Thousands and thousands of people have already had success with it. And remember, success is depending on the person. Some people just increasing their bankroll is success. Some people just losing less often is successful, because would you rather lose $1,000 a month? Would you rather lose $100 a month but still have fun sports betting along that 30-day window? So that can be success. For other people, it's realizing through the education that we provide here that sports betting is not for you, or this is not a prime opportunity or prime time of your life of where you are to be risking money on sports betting. And so they step away from sports betting completely. That's a win. So there's so many different ways that you can win with PlayerProps.ai. And the fact that I'm helping thousands and thousands and thousands, now tens of thousands of people, it's something that just makes me want to work harder and do more. And so I'm constantly growing the app. We're adding new features based on your guys' suggestions. But The reason why I just went over this hour story for you guys, and it looks like my timer just hit an hour here, is I took something that was probably one of the worst times in my life. And the thing I didn't add prior to this too long didn't read recap, the thing I didn't mention is this back injury in 2017 on this day, 2017, which is the whole reason why I'm recording today. I actually re-injured my back in 2023 on Super Bowl Sunday. I think it was Super Bowl Sunday. I'm planning to watch from home, and I'm carrying a plate. I'm home by myself, and I'm carrying a plate. I just had lunch back to the kitchen, and I sneezed. And I had a very, very aggressive sneeze. And that same vibration thing just like in the back. And I just like fell to the ground. And then I get to the bed. I text my wife who's running errands or something like, hey, I just hurt my back. And I didn't know the extent of it, so that's all I said. And then I severely bulged my back, where this, for the same two vertebrae that I herniated 6 years prior. And it was either 2022 or 2023. I can't remember. Probably 2022. Yeah, it jacked me up, and it was so much painful, and I could not get out of bed for 30 days. And then I had to go to physical therapy after I was able to get out of bed with a cane and everything. And so the reason, again, why I'm telling this story isn't just to give you like, hey, this is my story for you guys, but I took one of the worst things that ever happened to me. Physically, probably the worst thing that ever happened. Even though the re-injury was much more painful, it wouldn't have happened if this first thing didn't happen. And you can argue the first thing wouldn't happen if this stupid neighbor wasn't an idiot. Which we won't go into the lawsuit, but I went after I went after him after he permanently damaged my back from being stupid. Not to say I won anything, but I let him know that he ruined my life. So he took this. I took this horrible thing. I reorganized my priorities. It reset my entire brain. What should we focus on now? We were focusing on things. We were making good money, but we weren't necessarily happy. Now this is an opportunity through the 6-week period of you being on short-term disability where you can't sit down or work. Think about your life. Think about opportunities. Find something that makes you happy. So I took it. Found something. I took a 70% pay cut because I knew controlling my own destiny, even though I was still working for I wasn't owning the entire company I was working for, like with the fantasy sports company and then the Chinese education one. But it's just like things are gonna suck. It's very, very hard to go throughout life without having something that's as like life changing. Now I pray and hope that nobody has a severe back injury if you haven't already had one. I wouldn't wish any injury on anybody, but it's a mindset thing. And I try to figure out like how can I take my life experience and relay that into sports betting. Like sports betting, you're going to lose a lot of money. You're going to lose a lot of money before you ever find me. When you find me, if you listen to me, you won't lose a lot of money. I'm not saying you're going to win every bet, so you're still going to lose some money. But I'm going to curb how much money you lose because I know why you're losing so much money. But you just have to, if you are in a situation right now, maybe you don't even need to tie this into sports betting. If you're in a situation that you just don't like, it could be a relationship, marriage, work, something that you know that you're most likely not in the best situation you can be in. There's always a way out. There's always a positive view or positive way you can turn things around. If you're in a job you don't like, find a job that you would like and try to figure out how much. If you like how much you're getting paid by your job. So I had 2 different scenarios that I just went over here. I loved my job to death. I wasn't making good money, so I got out of that scenario. I went to a scenario where I was making great money. I did not love my job to death. You're not a tree. If you don't like where you are, you can simply leave. As cliche as that stupid idiom is, it does make sense. If you don't like where you are, you can leave. Maybe you don't like the city you live in. You can leave. You don't like your job, you can leave. If you're in a non-optimal relationship, you can leave. There's always greener grass, and it doesn't always have to be more money. It could just be more happiness. Or maybe it doesn't have to be more happiness, it could be more money. You have to figure out what's most important to you. But because I never gave up through all these different things where I was enjoying my job, getting paid crap, getting paid great, not enjoying my job, severe back damage. And I mean, I could have just pitied myself and gone into depression and a bunch of other things. But I was like, no, this is a higher power telling me, I'm going to give you 6 weeks off. You're going to get 6 weeks off. You need to think about what you want to do. You're not happy. Think about what you want to do. Sure, we had to give you severe back injury. That'll change your life forever. But hey, it's going to give you 6 weeks of short-term disability. Use that time. Figure out what it is. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is essentially how I got from college 16 years ago to where we are here. There are still hundreds of millions of people betting on sports that have no idea what PlayerProps.ai is, and they're losing money, hand over fist. My only hope is that I change your life enough through the guidelines, through the app, through our massive, amazing, helpful community that I will put up against any other sports betting community on planet Earth. There's no more community that's more welcoming and more helpful than my community, regardless of how small or how large it is. That is a guarantee. We have the best people that are betting on sports in the same community, helping each other on a daily basis. My only hope is that I change your life in a positive way enough that you simply let the people that you know personally, or maybe you don't know, maybe you just have a lot of following on TikTok or something, just tell the people that you have the eyeballs of and the attention of about PlayerProps.ai. It's here for a reason. It's successful for a reason. We're just getting started. But the more that you guys tell people about it, the quicker we grow. And yeah, so I just wanted to make sure I record this. So was that 8 years ago today? So yeah, 8 years ago today, July 20th, 2017, 8 years ago today. That's when the fence injury happened, which set on a course of me creating PlayerProps.ai X amount of years later and creating the best community on planet Earth with the best research app on planet Earth for sports betting. Still not sure what I'm going to call this, but we'll figure out in editing. But if you made it this far, congratulations. You know a little bit more about me. And yeah, it's just something I wanted to share because it's a very special day. I can actually argue that it's both the worst day of my life and the best day of my life. You got to make sure that you change your mindset to being a glass half full person and not a glass half empty. So, I hope you take something from that. Good luck, not just with sports betting, but with your life choices. And yeah, thanks for tuning in.